Any questions before we get started?
Blank slate. I don't know what to expect. So, yeah.
Have you listened to any of them?
A couple, yeah. And, completely different topics depending where the people are coming from.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's, we have this overall theme for everyone, but every episode is so different based off what they're bringing to the table and what they're experiencing in their life. I think it's really cool. I love it. It's been a lot of fun. All right. So nothing before we get started. We're ready to go.
Ready as I'll ever be.
Okay. All right. The 5 Elements of Letting Go, the podcast. Discussing mental health openly and freely, and learning tools and techniques to find peace. Well, welcome everyone to the 5 Elements of Letting Go. I'm Dr. Jared McCollum, and my guest today is Jenni Bailey, or Jenni B, or she has many aliases.
Yeah.
She is, not only are you like the town's resident beekeeper, but you're the chicken lady.
The chicken lady. I think there's a few beekeepers, not
there
just
is.
me.
But you are, not only are you the one who kind of started the, backyard chicken movement here in Okotoks, you wrote the manual, basically helped write the manual for getting people to be able to have chickens now.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you worked with the town with that, or?
They took over the process after the initial, how things went down.
Yeah.
But yes, we definitely started that process, and Bylaw took it over and did a lot of research, and it was a lot of really great people and a lot of good luck.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it came to pass.
Yeah. How many chickens now do you think are in Okotoks?
Legal ones?
Yeah.
Well, we're capped at 18 households.
Okay.
And each household is allowed to have 4 chickens. So
18,
it's a license.
Capped at 18.
They have 1 household per 1,500 of population. So as the population increases, the town doesn't want everybody getting chickens because then, we'll be overrun. And
I think if multiple people started like, I want chickens, they wouldn't have chickens more than 3 or 4 weeks because they'd be like, this is a lot of work. And they'd
well,
probably
after
give them
the
up,
initial setup, it's not.
Oh,
it's
really?
actually very self-maintaining and it's a lot of fun. It's not a lot of work at all.
Oh, that's cool.
But yes, so it is a capped, licensed, regulated program, and it's a yearly dog license kind of idea.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of families in town that have chickens.
I just think that's fascinating. I remember watching the whole process happening. I would never get chickens myself, but
and that's okay.
Yeah.
That's okay. You don't have to.
But it's super cool, to just watch that whole process of, this is something I'm passionate about. It brings me a lot of joy. I think we should be able to do it, and pushing through and getting it legal.
Well, it was a fantastic learning experience for me. But I have 3 kids at home. They were little at the time, and these chickens were their pets. And I just thought this can be a real learning experience of we can just give up or we can figure it out.
Yeah. So did you have the chickens before the bylaw?
Yes.
And of course was there really a law against having chickens, or?
Chickens, yes. They were
okay.
named in the animal bylaw as a farm animal. So it was no different than having a cow in the backyard or a pig or, it was not allowed. They were specifically mentioned. The initial call to bylaw actually went in asking about my honeybees because we had honeybees. And someone on the green space saw us harvesting our honey in August, 3rd week of August, and we'd had the bees since April. But on that day, he got stung and called bylaw and said, my neighbors got bees and I got stung.
Or got stung. I'm got quotation marks up.
Well, exactly. And so, on honey harvest day, everybody is close to home. They're not out foraging, regardless. But bylaw said, "Oh, well, can you identify the bee as one of hers?" And he was like, "Well, no." And I thought that was a really clever answer.
Yeah, because it could have been any bee.
Well, Chinook Honey Farm, honeybees fly, a huge kilometer radius, and they're outside. So my gosh. So anyway, that was the call. And honeybees were legal as long as I was not selling my honey, which I wasn't. But then they said, well, they also have chickens. And then that's where the call came.
And so they allowed you to keep them during the process?
No, they had to go. And then that's where I learned the process. Other towns at the time were doing it. Black Diamond and Turner Valley had already started the process. And so I had some fantastic, amazing, phenomenal people helping.
Yeah.
And we did it. We did it. We learned how anybody can approach the town. You get 5 minutes and you can present, and it just went from there.
Oh, that's so cool. Interesting, starting with this discussion, but it's something that does bring you a lot of joy.
Still to this day.
Yeah.
And so many other people.
Yeah.
So many other people. I'm 2 blocks from our school, and so I am a free walkable field trip. And so our school comes all the time for however they can fit it into a program, whether it's Pioneer Days, Science Life Cycle, Care and Feed of Animals, anything and everything. We even had a beehive die-off one winter, and so I brought the beehive home. We don't keep bees in Okotoks anymore, but out in the Crow's Nest Pass. So we brought the beehive home, and the outdoor ed class came, and we took the beehive apart to figure out what happened. Why did they die? And these grade 4 kids had handfuls of dead bees, and they were so sad.
Oh.
And so these kids were really learning an appreciation of honeybees.
Yeah.
And, looking at these handfuls of bees with real empathy and sadness, and how can we fix this?
Yeah.
And
that's
so
cool.
that's just me in my backyard, right?
Love
Chickens
it.
and bees. It's pretty amazing.
That's
Pretty
really cool.
amazing. Yeah.
Wow. Well, let's, again, everyone that's listening knows that this question is coming, but how do you feel mental health is, the state of mental health in our community at the moment?
I think, how can I word it? I think it's better than ever because people are self-checking and people are talking about it and people are figuring it out.
Yeah.
Right? Like, for better or for worse, I think lockdown really made people evaluate their situations and made them decide, I don't like my life.
Yeah.
What can I do now? Or I love my life. This is awesome. Like, I'm so good. My family's good. So I think it really made people look at themselves. How do they spend their time? How do they spend their money? Do they like their job? Do they like their family? It made people question those heavy things that we usually just pretend aren't there.
What about yourself personally during lockdown? How did that go for you?
I loved it. I loved it. My family was together.
Yeah.
My family was together. My husband travels a lot for work and he was home and the world didn't stop turning. These meetings continued, with Zoom or conference calls or whatever. It was just amazing how that process continued without the hectic schedule.
Oh, that's good.
And so, no, I loved it. I loved that we were together and we were safe and we had food. And from that point of view, I loved it.
Yeah.
Now, maintaining the mental health of everybody else in my household wasn't so easy. Yeah.
What was going on there? Was it just
Well,
kids
just
getting,
all the losses, all the cancellations and all the losses and some big ones.
Yeah.
You know, and my kids come to me for that support. We don't have other family in town, so there aren't aunts and uncles or grandma or that kind of thing. So I'm that main go-to person, and I was running out of rainbows and sunshine, you know, and that's really, really tough.
Yeah.
So, yeah, because my son had been fundraising for a sailing trip in the Gulf Islands since last year.
Yeah.
He wrote an essay to apply, got accepted. The trip got called off on the Friday, and then the premier announced lockdown on the Sunday. They were supposed to fly that Monday. Gone. Done. We're still fighting to get money back.
Oh, gee.
You know? So all like some big things. We were going to climb the Calgary Tower. They have a week where you can climb the tower. We've been practicing. My oldest son's high school grad got canceled.
Yeah, Kira's got canceled too. Yeah.
You know, and that's a big deal when you're that age.
Yeah.
And but turning a negative into the positive, the high school was amazing what they did. The principal and the vice principal went to every graduating student's house. We had scheduled times, party on the driveway, you know, grad gown and cap. And it was amazing. It was amazing. And we had, you know, a socially distant little party on our driveway, and close family and friends were there, like people that matter, that wanted to be there. So for me, that was much more special than, you know, a few hundred people downtown at the dinner. Yeah. Where you don't see anybody. So so it was pretty special. So we made the best of that. But yeah, just all those cancellation after cancellation after cancellation. It was tough. Yeah. It was really tough.
Well, everyone seemed to get through it okay.
Yeah. And we're all back to school now. Some of us just by the skin of our teeth. Yes. We're doing university from the kitchen table.
That's
We're not in the military or anything, because we had all kinds of great ideas the week before school started. And then we finally picked some classes, and he's doing awesome.
Oh, good.
He's really, really liking it, and you know, halfway through first semester, and we'll see what happens. Yeah. When residence opens up and all that kind of stuff. So he's doing pretty good.
Oh, excellent. Excellent. Well, now those that know you, you know, they know you are this, you know, always seems to be smiling, riding motorcycles. You know,
that was another trip that got canceled. Yeah. I'm not smiling about that.
But, you know, I've always, every experience I've ever had with you is always like super happy, super positive. You are a very passionate person. You have, you know, your loves and passions, and you do them, and you just, you know, you have your amazing sense of style. You just do life your way. Yay. Now, my question is, you know, is everything always like this for you? You know, has there been times in your life where you've struggled? Is this?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Anything you want to share?
Oh, some things.
Not everything.
Some are none of your business. No, I mean, I've definitely gone through some hard things. The hardest the last 2 years. You know, and it's all what you make of it. And yeah, my life isn't always fantastic. But again, it's what you make of it, what you choose to dwell on, and what you deal with and move forward from. You know, and I get, I seem to get very quiet, and I pull back. And that's my time to sort of figure shit out. And then I come back.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm similar. Yeah.
Are you?
Where
Yeah.
you need that. We're just like, what's his problem? What's going on? He seems a little quiet.
Yeah.
And it's just, you're like, working things out in your head.
Yeah. All
trying
the
to-
scenarios and
Mhm.
what do I think about that? How do I feel about that? I don't know.
Yeah.
So it just takes some time to figure things out. And I have a great circle of go-to women
Mm-hmm.
that, if I don't see them for 6 months or whatever, and I shoot them a text, hey, I need to talk to you. Come for coffee tomorrow.
Yeah.
And I think people need to have those people in their life.
Yeah. I think, like I have my best friend for over 22 years or whatever. There are times where we maybe didn't talk for, a couple of years or whatever, just lives are busy.
Mm-hmm.
But whenever we see each other, it's like nothing's changed.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there's some people that have a hard time with relationships like that. They
But
think,
why?
I know, they
There's
think
something for you to figure out
yeah,
there.
someone, they should always be available, always be, there. And if I'm not hearing from them, there's something wrong but there's something about having those valuable friendships that are always just a text or call away.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like nothing's happened and they're there for you.
Mm-hmm.
And, how do you develop those other than you being that person for those people, so that they become that? Like, what do you think about that?
Well, I've got, I go to a couple of women's circles. And a couple of them a few years ago were facilitated by a friend just because she thought something was missing for us.
Mm-hmm.
That whole sense of community and of people getting together and really talking. And so, and those are some of my go-to women. And then there are other circles here in town where they're facilitated by someone and you go, and half of these women I don't know. But it's a safe space where you can go and talk, where you can talk openly and honestly. So it's a real safe space because what's discussed in circle stays in circle. And it's all with meditation and,
it's like a drumming circle or just
not drumming. It would be more of a meditation circle, or the ones that I do with personal friends. It's just, a reason for us to get together and really talk. And sometimes there will be, a subject, and then we all talk about our opinions and sort of kind of figure things out, or what's going on with one person. This is what we're going to talk about. What's your experience? How did you handle this? And so it's just sort of group therapy. You need a title.
That's what was in my mind is group therapy.
But woman's circle sounds much more mysterious. And we burn sage. And
that's super cool.
Yeah.
It's now, again, this is something that I think everyone needs. They need that circle of community.
But they also need to be willing to be honest.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's where, and that's been part of my COVID journey too, where I don't have time for those pretend friendships anymore.
Yeah.
Hi, how's it going? Awesome. Like I have certain friends where you can get right to the hard stuff right away. Like, and I think people are afraid. I think a lot of people are afraid of being honest with themselves, let alone discuss it with somebody else.
Yeah. It's, again, this is something that's come up in several of these podcasts where we talk about the importance of vulnerability and, being honest in our relationships, because like if you really want someone to care, they have to be able to connect. And you can't connect with someone if it's not real, if it's not vulnerable, if it's not honest. And hopefully these conversations can start modeling that communication for our community to encourage that. And I don't know if it's because people they're so worried about what others will think, or they've just never been modeled that behavior before, and they don't know, they've never had any practice or to trust. And I guess a lot of that comes from the communication you have with your parents initially, right?
Mm-hmm. That's how you learn.
So much of ours is modeled from our upbringing, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. What was your upbringing like?
Well, my parents were German immigrants and very strict. We spoke German at home. Everything was on time, on schedule. Choppity chop, let's go. So I couldn't wait to get out of there.
See, that's interesting because I was very curious about this. I wanted to ask you that because, you just seem so much the opposite of that now.
Well, I moved to Vancouver. I moved to Vancouver, and my dad said that's what ruined me because I was going to the Hare Krishna festivals because I was a vegetarian, and it was the most amazing food. And so he was like, I don't know if it's the ocean air out there, but it ruined you. I think it saved me.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was growing up in, an immigrant household. They had no family here. They had no help. And they were just doing things the best that they could do. Mm-hmm. And, but I talk a lot with my boys because anything goes sort of at our house.
Yeah.
And, we do have rules and boundaries. My kids will tell you I'm very, very strict, but it's very open in the communication and, in the trust. And, I can't tell you how many times I've heard from my kids when they didn't get in trouble over something, that was unexpected.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's like, well, why would you get in trouble if this was your decision? Let's talk about it.
Yeah.
And, and so, but I think that's a real learning to figure out what you didn't like from your upbringing and being able to change it in how you do things.
Yeah. Yeah.
With your own kids, because they really make you realize like what is important to you because you're modeling and teaching these little people. Yeah,
I know for myself, I was getting raised in a very strict home. And I think for me, I started kind of modeling some of that behavior initially, but then I was like, it's these choices, these ideas and parenting this way aren't around what's going to make us happiest or make my kid happy or help them learn and develop on their own. It's about me, arbitrarily deciding this ideology or this belief system is more important than my children, more important than my relationship with them.
Yeah. And very fear-based.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it didn't work for me.
Well, it made me scared.
Yeah. And it just made me rebel the whole time. I have a podcast with my son called Really Dad. And we talk about parenting and communicating with teenagers. And one thing we've talked about there a lot is just how my upbringing taught me how to lie and lie really well.
And sneak.
Yeah. Sneak out and just, not be authentic.
Yeah.
And have this image of what was acceptable at home and who I was supposed to be for them and then who I really was.
Yeah.
And I fought that my whole life up until my mid-30s, where I was finally like, fuck it. Yeah. I'm not going to pretend anymore.
Yeah. Well, and it's funny, I had my first baby at 34. So that's quite late. And so I had sorted out a lot of my stuff by then.
Yeah.
And deprogrammed, if you want it. My brother-in-law likes to say.
Yeah.
Took him 10 years to deprogram his wife from what we had learned at home.
But really that, I know for myself, that whole, my deprogramming part, it took me, 3 or 4 years, when you're really thinking about it, you're like, man, these deep-seated, because again, when you're a Mormon, these ideas and concepts are pounded in your head, every day.
Yeah.
And 3 hours on Sunday and 2 hours on a weekday and 2 hours on Monday nights for family evening. And we'd get up every morning and have to read scriptures before we all went off to school.
No.
And then when you're in high school, you go into seminary every morning before you go to school. And so it's like, it's so beautifulully planned.
Yeah.
This idea of okay, how can we, again, my parents will hate this term, but brainwash, like, just like build little good soldiers on all of this your whole life. And then at the point where they think they're going to lose them, they make them go to church every day before they go to school.
Yeah. And then send them on a mission.
Yeah.
To high school.
Yeah.
No, I grew up without religion. I was baptized Lutheran. I don't even know what that means. My sister wasn't baptized. I don't think that's how important it was in our house.
Okay.
I think in Germany, everybody was Lutheran at that time, and you just got baptized because that was tradition.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, we're not a religious household at all. Very spiritual, but not religious. And I think those are.
What do you think the difference is between spiritual and religious?
For me, it's more of being in one with nature. You can have an amazing experience meditating outside. And just, it's a whole different way of being. It's much more relaxed. It's not believing in one thing or believing things are done in one way.
Mm-hmm.
There are all kinds of gods, of goddesses, if that's what you want to call them.
Mm-hmm.
I believe in Mother Nature. I believe in the oceans. And for me, I feel like that brings a lot more peace than a scriptured Sunday.
Yeah. I agree. It's my son and I have had this conversation a few times about the difference. Like, again, you hear a lot from people like, well, if you're not religious, where are your morals? So people that aren't religious
There's
have
a lot
no
of religious
morals.
people that have absolutely no morals.
Exactly.
How about your religion is don't be an asshole?
Yeah.
That's what I tell my kids every day. Go forth and don't be an asshole.
Yeah.
That'll get you really, really far.
It will. Yeah. We've talked about there's, to me, morality always has been and always will be separate from religion.
Mm-hmm.
And that being, and how I explain it is our morality as a, culture or as humans has adapted and developed much faster than religion. And all we have to do is go back and look at, our history, even our recent history, where, slavery is encouraged and celebrated in the Bible. And we decided, quite a while ago, that's not a good thing. Mm-hmm. Slavery isn't acceptable. And then it was like, okay, well, women should be able to own property and have a voice and do things. Bible doesn't agree with that, but our morality decided, no, women are equal. Mm-hmm. And then beating your kids wasn't acceptable, but it's acceptable in the Bible. So on and so on, and all of these, and I, try to explain to my kids that morality is something higher than religion. Mm-hmm. And it's something that we as a whole agree to, as these things are acceptable. And it evolves and continues to change as we as a species develops and grows and changes. And it's happening so much faster than it ever has in our, history.
Well, I think our kids are exposed to more with the technology that they have. I think they're getting smarter. Mm-hmm. I think they're exposed to more. I think they're making earlier choices.
Yeah.
And we don't hide a lot from our kids. We talk openly about stuff. Mm-hmm. And so I think they can make good choices for themselves.
Yeah.
That doesn't happen overnight. When they turn 18 and go to university, all of a sudden they know how to do things, right? Like it's a slow process that starts when they're very, very young.
Yeah. It's interesting. I was, one thing about how the way we view children and, this idea that you are a child and then all of a sudden one day on your birthday, you're an adult. And we don't expose them or teach them how to be an adult, how to do adult things and, navigate that world until they're 18. And then and it's so funny that we don't allow them to do any of those things until they're 18. But yet we always tell them to grow up and act like an adult when they're like in their teens.
Yeah.
And, I remember particularly like, being raised Mormon, alcohol was this terrible thing.
Mm-hmm.
Don't go near it. And, I maybe experimented with alcohol maybe 2 or 3 times before I was 18. And then I didn't drink again until I was in my late 30s.
Wow.
And I remember Chris and I went to Paris, and everywhere you go, there's open air drinking.
Mm-hmm. Germany too.
Yeah. They're sitting in the park drinking wine. They're, out on the patio. They're everywhere you go. People are selling alcohol openly, and they're consuming it openly on the side of the river, wherever. Mm-hmm. And one thing that just kind of blew my mind is no one's fighting. No one's shouting. No issues.
Yeah.
And it was just this celebratory, very relaxed, feeling everywhere. Yeah. And I think it was on our last night, we were walking back, and all of a sudden I hear these familiar sounds of drunk people, and I was like, whoa, where is this? I haven't heard this whole trip. What's going on? And we were coming up on the Canadian pub.
Way to go, Canadians.
Yes. And they're all young people, smashed out of their minds, being crazy.
So funny.
And so I talked to my kids about this, about how, in Europe, kids are exposed to alcohol at a much earlier age. Mm-hmm. It's something that they can have with dinner.
And it's not a big deal. That's how we grew up. That's how my boys grew up. And it's just whatever.
Yeah. And now that they're 18 and they've been said, no, that's where we get all this binge drinking and this
absolutely
binge behavior when they become an adult. And it's all this terrible, over the top everything because they've said no their whole lives.
Yeah.
And now they have this opportunity and they go a little overboard.
It's interesting to see the generation now, though, that marijuana is legal.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's something I've never seen before.
Yeah.
And we talk about it a lot because my oldest turned 18 this summer. And so it's open both stores, and that's really weird for me as a parent because it's always been illegal. And even my last son, when he did the DARE program at school, the drug and alcohol program, marijuana wasn't even on it anymore because it was coming, the legalization was coming. And that's a weird process.
That's good for them to not continue to push that agenda.
Yeah, it was
when they knew it was coming.
Yeah. And so we talk about all that stuff. I am not a pot smoker. Tried it in high school and, my hippie stint in Vancouver.
Mm-hmm.
But I tell the story of the first time I tried it was high school dance, grade 9. High school was grade 9 to 12 or 13 in Ontario.
Yeah.
And so first high school dance was like 2 weeks in. And everybody was out front waiting for the doors to open to go in, and a joint was going around like at a concert, you know?
Yeah.
And I took one puff off it, and it just kept going. And my kids were like, "Oh, you've done marijuana," and just, they're calling me a stoner. And Mom doesn't remember those years because she's a stoner. And I was like, oh my gosh, that was one puff, like a drag. I don't even know. They don't even call it that anymore.
Yeah.
But anyway. Then, so my middle son is in grade 9 now. Mm-hmm. And so he's just like, "Mom, 1 month in, still clean," he says. I think that's so funny.
What does he mean by that? Like, because he's in
grade 9.
Oh, so he is.
And he's
cleaner longer than you were.
He's cleaner longer than me. And it's like, that makes me sound like really horrible. He's like 1 month in, still clean.
Yeah.
So funny.
Yeah.
And I just think, you're funny.
My son did the same thing with me when he found out how young my first sexual experience. He was like, "What, Dad? You little slut."
Oh, so funny. Yeah, it's just, but I feel like I was so mature at that time, and my middle son is a moron. No, he's not. But like when you look at your own kid at this age, I just think, oh, my baby.
Yeah. It's so funny. We should hang out sometime and get high, Jenny. It's been too long.
It's been too long. Oh my gosh. I don't even know why I'm so fascinated, like all the edibles and, a friend was making s'mores with edible chocolate. And I'm like, what?
Yeah.
What is that? It's just, I'm oddly fascinated by it, and I don't know why.
Oh,
but there's so many stores in town too. Like
there's too many.
Okotoks is full of potheads that I don't know
Okotoks is
about.
so funny because we have like 16 liquor stores.
But let's not allow chickens.
Yes. Liquor stores. We've got like 7 or 8 pot shops.
I think there's more.
Yeah, there might be. And then we've got nail salons. Or things like that, like spas, nail salons, ton of that. Yeah. And one registry where everyone's waiting outside in line all the time. That just drives me crazy. Someone needs to get a license and open up another registry in this town.
Yeah, I don't think so. I don't think that's a very easy task. I know somebody was looking into it. But yeah, so funny. So it's strange to see that kind of revolutionary change. I don't know.
Yeah.
Our kids will grow up completely differently.
Well, and I think one thing I think it's already showing is kids are smoking way less pot. Because mom and dad are. Why are they going to smoke pot? So like funny. Our kids, hardly any of them smoke pot anymore. Are there
still people selling it on the streets, or is it not worth
I don't
it?
think it's really a big deal here. It might be in other places, but I don't think there's a lot of that just because, you're right. They're so easily available now that, they still need to figure out, like Chris and I the other day were trying to find this particular blend we wanted in capsules. And it's so hard to get what you want. They have all these things. I'm like, no one wants any of that. Why are they
But even in capsules, like all these products that are available now, I just, it's not in my little red wine bubble in the backyard.
My experience too, like I first tried cannabis, I think in grade 10.
Yeah.
And we had went with my friend's brother to go buy it outside an Earl's in a parking lot. And of course, we all felt like we're going to get arrested any minute. But we brought that home. And so his brother gave us a joint for the 3 or 4 of us. And I don't think I knew how to inhale.
Yeah.
Or I didn't take enough, or I don't know what it was. But I didn't get high, but I sure pretended like I was. Because everyone else was.
Well, you're a
and
kid.
they may have all been pretending too. I don't know. But I didn't really I didn't experience it again until I think it was grade 12. And we were in a hot tub and someone was passing one around.
Yeah.
Just so everyone knows, don't mix cannabis in a hot tub. It hits you so fast and so hard.
The heat?
I guess. There was like your blood's flowing so much faster and everything's going. But
maybe. Yeah.
Yeah. I just, and I'd never, that was my first time high. And I was
pretending.
I was like, not pretending. And I was like freaking out and asking my girlfriend to get us home. Cause again, like, when you're a Mormon, you're continually taught, don't lose control. Don't let the devil get you. Don't let alcohol get you or all these things. Yeah. And here I was, I felt like I was losing control.
Yeah.
But you're not really. Once you understand it and experience it enough, it's not that big of a deal. But yeah. And then of course I had that negative feeling from my, being a Mormon and that experience for a long time. But then about 10 years ago, it seemed like 1 out of 5 of all the middle-aged women that came into the clinic were using cannabis for sleep.
A lot.
Now I think it's much higher than that.
Yeah.
But back then I was like, really?
And it wasn't easy to get, I don't think, back then. Like now and because it's legal, a lot of the moms that I know in town, a lot of the women, talking about it openly. And a lot of people. So it's beneficial in that way.
Yeah.
And that it's, from a reputable source and, because the whole fentanyl thing, that's terrifying. That's
I tell you, I
terrifying.
cannot wait until, our country really needs to legalize all drugs and get a safe source and start teaching and educating people about them.
Yeah.
And helping people out. One, because it'll save lives. And two, because then I'll actually, be brave enough to try cocaine.
I have a story, but I can't tell
you. Okay, when the mics are off, you can tell me. I would, there is some curiosity there. I will admit it.
Yeah.
But I won't touch the stuff now.
Now I wouldn't.
Because you don't know what's in half of that stuff. And that's why we need, a regulated source for these things. Yeah. So people stop dying.
Yes.
We focus so much on COVID. During the lockdown, our overdoses in Canada blew up.
Suicides.
Yeah. Suicides, overdoses, all kinds of stuff from it. And we are not talking about this enough to help people out. And we make this, again, one thing that really irritates me when we start talking about addiction and drugs is everyone makes it a moral issue. You're morally weak. You need to pray more, all this other stuff, and that will fix this.
Yeah.
No, it's because you have experienced trauma and you're using the drugs so you don't have to feel it.
Well, and that can be emotional trauma, physical trauma to cover pain. There's so many reasons. And the drug addiction is a byproduct of those reasons. And nobody's going to the core.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So what are some of the practices you do that help you balance your mental health and, find your peace?
Find my peace. Well, at the beginning of, just before lockdown, actually, my husband gifted me a paddleboard.
Oh, yeah.
There was a lady out in, I want to say Strathmore, that was teaching yoga classes on the water on a paddleboard. And that was on my bucket list for this summer.
Yeah.
And so, got a paddleboard and, and then lockdown.
Yeah.
Within a couple of weeks. And so that was all kind of crazy. And so we had unpacked the paddleboard and it was on the floor in my living room. Just kind of novelty because it was brand new and I've never had a paddleboard and it was something I've wanted to try for so long. I've seen your photos of where you go and it's just like a way to enjoy this province on another level, right?
Yeah, for sure.
And so I got this paddleboard and then I started doing my yoga in the living room on my paddleboard. Well, because that's what I wanted to do this summer on the water. So it just sort of made sense to do that in the living room.
That's cool.
And so it stayed there for all of lockdown.
Love it.
and that's where I would sit in the morning and have a coffee. And so it was almost like we lived by the lake.
Yeah.
And then now over the summer, we have been on the water and just love it.
Yeah.
I love it so much.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. The water is always my go-to, whether it's the river here in town or whatever. And so,
you'll have to connect with Chris and because she goes to these meetups and she'll paddle all kinds of places while I'm working.
Amazing.
She just goes out on her own and meets up with this group. But this spring and summer, you two should.
For sure. Yeah.
She's like a goddess out on that paddleboard. She's so good.
Amazing.
Loves it.
Yeah. No, it's phenomenal. It's really struck a chord with me.
Oh, that's super cool.
Yeah.
What else?
Like I said before, my circles with my women. And that always includes some meditation and, some saging and just good, honest conversations. And beekeeping. Beekeeping is Zen zone, yoga class, hot spa, all in one. It's just, you completely zone out and just listen to your bees and meet them one by one and check everything out. And
that's super neat.
Yeah, and then like I literally do my thing and close it up, and then we have a bench that's like 2-3 feet from the hive, and we'll sit and have a cup of coffee or a glass of wine, depending what time of day it is, and just sit and watch our bees come and go.
So do they just hibernate during the winter?
They don't hibernate. They sort of form a cluster like penguins, and they vibrate the whole time and sort of move to the outside of the cluster to take turns and keep each other warm.
Whoa.
And the queen will be somewhere in the middle. Mm-hmm. And they're a wonderful, wonderful little society. If one bee has access to food, everybody eats. Mm-hmm. And so they just sort of move through the hive and eat the resources. And every Chinook, they'll unhuddle and fly.
Oh, wow.
And go poop. They don't poop in the hive, So you'll see them fly every Chinook. And then you think, yes, we made it another month.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, boy.
So, yeah, it's pretty cool.
Oh, that's neat. What are some things you do for your kids to help manage their mental health?
Oh, I do all those things that they hate. I bring them to see you. They love that.
Okay.
But yeah, I make them come and we'll talk about stuff. And it's quite interesting to see how individual they are compared to each other.
Yeah.
Because you just sort of assume raise them the same. They react the same. And each one of them sort of has a different love language, if that's what you want to call it, or handles stress differently. So that was a real learning for me to figure out who they were, like to drop my expectation of who they should be.
Yes.
And who are they, and how do they react to things. And I think that's really changed how we relate to each other. Mm-hmm. That I am their safe space, and I know who goes quiet when they need to talk.
Yeah.
And then it's just like, come sit. Let's just sit. Mom, I'm fine. Okay, let's just sit. Yeah. And I'll put my hand on his knee or my arm around him, and within 10 minutes he's talking. Yeah. And the other one will ask for a hug. Mom, I just need a hug. And then while we're hugging, he'll, oh, well, this happened today. What do you think? Or, and then the other one doesn't stop talking.
Yeah. I think I know who that was.
Yeah. And then it's like, okay, let's pick out the bits and pieces. What really happened?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's been really a learning experience for me too, to just sort of sit back and figure it out. And again, it makes for healthy, good relationships, And a lot of the stuff that I do for them, they don't even know, or, essential oils, or that we go to an osteopath, or, that our medical doctor is the last on the list of who we see, and that there's a herbal tea for everything, and, just all that kind of stuff. Yeah. And
there's quite a few steps in there that I kind of picked out what you're saying. Right. The one I thought was really interesting is, and again, all of us as parents, this is a huge lesson to figure out who that child is. Oof, yeah. Rather than, like I know with myself, I was like, oh, I'm going to have lots of boys and they're all going to play football and I'm going to be their coach. And, like this was my plan and idea, right? Mm-hmm. And then my first son had autism. Yeah. And it was like, okay, that's probably not going to happen. And if it does, is that where he should be?
Mm-hmm. And is that what he wants to do?
Exactly. But I think too often we as parents have this plan of how we want our family and kids to be.
You need to let that control go when they're like maybe 3.
Yes, exactly. And then, then my middle son had anxiety, and like I originally thought, well, he's sturdy kid. I could see him, playing and all this. And then he's just too soft of a heart, And then by my third kid who had autism too, it was just like, okay, my kids aren't playing football.
Why
That's
don't
okay
you
with
play
me.
Football?
Well, yeah, whatever. Like I did. I don't need to do that anymore. But it's interesting how we have this in our heads of
You gotta let that go.
how those kids are supposed to add to my life. Right, or like, this
At the
idea
sake of their own happiness.
Yeah, exactly. And when we can accept that these kids are their own person, they have their own needs, they have their own view of the world, they have their own way of communicating, their own love language, all of that.
But it's such a learning as a parent, because what if your kid has different political views than you? What if your kid, agrees with different things? What if your kid likes this? And it's like, that doesn't make you a bad parent. Mm-hmm. I think that makes you a great parent, because you've raised somebody who has the confidence to have their own opinion.
Exactly. Yeah.
But that's tough. Like, that's tough. And my husband and I differ from that a little bit. And where he still, you want a motorcycle race and you want to be world champion. It's like, no, they're happy putzing around on a dirt bike, Yeah. And so we bug him a lot about those kinds of things.
Chris and I always joke that because when you read about people who do these fantastic things, they always had difficult childhoods or whatever. And we're like, damn, we should have fucked our kids up a little more.
But that's, again, judging levels of fantastic.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
Like, everybody doesn't need to be a superstar or a manager or a president or whatever. Like, there's a lot of, I don't want to say mediocrity, but there's a lot of success in just being happy and doing something that you love.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. Because and I think that part of that is understanding who they are and accepting who they are. That leads into that next stage of actually being able to communicate with your children. Mm-hmm. Because if you don't accept who they are and you're always pushing them to be something else, are they ever going to be honest with you? No. Are they ever going to be able to really communicate with you on how they feel about the world and what they want, what their desires are? Because if those things don't fit into what you want for them, they won't want to share that or talk about it because they don't want to hurt you, or they don't want to get you upset or whatever.
Or the expectations Well, like I said before, when a couple of things have happened and, I just said, well, that decision make you feel good, or, whatever I said, they thought, like my one son always says, thought you're going to beat me. It's like, when have I ever beat you? Like maybe that's what's missing.
Yeah.
But he always jokes, oh, great, now I'm going to get beat. But it's like, well, let's talk about it. What did you think the outcome would be? Mm-hmm. Now you have to fix it or apologize or whatever. And so just when they say, well, that was unexpected, that's an unexpected outcome. Mm-hmm. Well, what were you expecting? Yeah. I've always got your back. Mm-hmm. It doesn't mean you're not going to have to apologize or whatever. There's always different things that happen, but it's like, well, let's talk about it and let's figure out a way to fix it, Well,
and I'm sure these comments from their side, oh, I thought you were going to do this, or I thought you were going to do that, isn't because of experience in your parenting. It's because that's what they see in media.
Yeah.
Or that's what their friends' parents are doing or whatever, right?
Yeah.
They see parents getting angry and upset and, tearing kids apart because of mistakes. Like I continually tell parents, and when they bring their kids in, your child needs to fail often and early.
Oh, and don't give everybody a ribbon.
Yeah. Well, and I don't mind for, getting excited that people are trying and participating. But at the same time, you want your kids to know what it's like to fail early, to make mistakes, to make the wrong choice, to have to solve that problem themselves, to apologize, to work through that. Because if you coddle that child and you helicopter parent their whole life and then kick them out the door at 18, what the fuck are they going to do?
Yeah.
They don't know how to solve a problem. They don't know what happens when you say the wrong thing or you make a wrong choice or whatever. mom and dad have always bailed them out or solved the problem for them.
Yep.
It's, that's not fair to your child
No.
either.
No.
Yeah.
But a lot of people do it.
Yeah. And whether that's they feel they're doing it for the right reasons to protect their child, in the short term, maybe. But now you've taken away valuable lessons and experience for that child so that when they're like my 16-year-old, he is more mature and, prepared for the world than I was in my 20s, because he's given that opportunity to kind of mess up and figure things out.
Yeah.
Like one thing he was doing pretty good in school before they shut things down. Mm-hmm. And he went home and was working online and he just struggled.
Oh, so many kids did. Yeah. It was tough.
And
it was really tough.
One thing, I made him go out for a walk with me every day, just so he'd get outside and just so we had time to talk. Mm-hmm. And he's telling me about this one class. He was hating it and he didn't like the journal stuff. And he says, I'm not doing anything else, Dad. I'm just going to fail that course. And that there's that initial feeling of, no, you're not. But then I'm like, okay, all right, well, let's talk about what happens if you fail that class. What's the result? Well, you're going to have to make up that class somehow. So either you're going to have to do it in summer school or you're going to lose a spare later on. Or are you okay with that? Are you prepared for the consequences of that decision? Mm-hmm. And he's like, yeah, I'm okay with that. And I'm like, all right, because you may not have to do a whole lot. I'm sure the teachers are pretty lenient right now. Mm-hmm. And
they were.
If you just show an effort or at least complete stuff, I'm pretty sure you'll pass that class.
Yeah. The teachers were amazing for support at that time. Yeah.
And I think he was still like, nah, I'm not really. But the teacher still passed him.
They understood. Like the comp was just fantastic. Yeah. Fantastic. Because we had a phone call with the teacher too, where he was telling my son that, it's minimal work that you need to do to get this credit. Yeah. And, if you have to do it at summer school, it's the whole course, not the condensed version. But I think so many families had those conversations and the kids persevered. They pulled through. Yeah. And, it was a learning for all of us. It was a learning for the schools and how these kids produced under those kinds of circumstances. Nobody had done this before. Yeah.
It's interesting because then they canceled all the departmental exams. Or provincial exams, or what do they call them now? Yeah. And even this year now, they're saying they're an option or they don't have to.
Well, and that goes hand in hand then with what does the university accept? Yeah. Because my oldest was all over the board. We were going to travel, but then he couldn't. And then he was going to join the military and he just didn't know what he wanted to do. He didn't want to do university online. Mm-hmm. And so we had said, you can do whatever you want to do. You just need to decide and you need to do it. Mm-hmm. And so then it was very last minute with university because he wanted to defer. But there was nothing, he hadn't picked classes yet. I think it was a week or two before school started. Mm-hmm. So there was nothing to defer. Yeah. And then the university had also said, because you don't like the online format is not a reason to defer. They won't accept that. So you needed other reasons. And so then we sort of just sat down and said, this is what it is. If you don't go in September, you need to quit. Because you can't defer. Mm-hmm. So you lose your deposit, and that means you have to reapply next year. So next year, they might want the diploma exams, right? They were waived this year. Mm-hmm. And a year off of school, who's going to pass grade 12 math or science diploma exams, right? Yeah. And so that's what you're choosing if you don't go this year.
Interesting.
And so that really changes things, right? Yeah. And so he was almost overthinking it because it was just so overwhelming. And I think he was just nervous about going to university even, right? That in itself, you don't know what to expect. And then he was like, I don't know what I want to do with this degree. And it's like, don't figure all that out today.
Yeah.
Just pick 4 classes and do them. That's all you have to focus on.
Yeah.
You know, you can change your degree. You can go somewhere else next year. Residence will be open. Like, you know, it'll be completely different. Yeah. Right now, just pick 4 classes and do them. That's all you have to focus on.
You don't have to have it all figured out.
No.
You don't have to finish it. So many options.
Yeah. Yeah. And just, you know, with borders closed, travel was out. Like just, you know, everything was just not pointing in that direction. And he's done so well. He's done really, really well. Yeah.
Yeah. It's, they're even talking now about getting rid of them altogether, which I hope they do.
Well, you can do so well day to day in class, and the anxiety and nerves of exams kill it.
Yeah.
And that's not showing what you've learned or.
No. And tests are not really a good representation of how well you learn something. Mm-hmm. It may show how well you are at regurgitating information and memorization in a short term, but it doesn't show you what you've learned. Yeah. It'd be interesting. I'm excited for all of the changes that will come out of this whole experience. Well,
because they're figuring out what actually works.
Yeah.
Instead of just, well, this is how we've always done it. Mm-hmm. So
yeah, that's cool. Any wise woman words of wisdom? Before we
words of wisdom.
Yeah.
Oh. Wow.
Because you got lots.
I got lots. You put me on the spot. Gosh, to just really to be honest with yourself.
Yeah.
Be honest with yourself, because then that will make you think about what you think of your life. Are you happy with your life?
Yeah.
Do you like your work? Do you like your partner? Mm-hmm. Do you like your kids?
Yeah.
You know, what can you do to make things better for yourself?
I think those are huge words, because again, if you're honest with yourself, then, you know, you can actually understand and know what you need to be happy. Mm-hmm. If you're honest with who you are, then you attract that circle of people that are really honest and open to you, and that they'll be real friends, and that they do understand you and know you. So that will be a little more open and understanding and supportive.
Yeah.
If you're not honest, if you're not real, if you're not vulnerable, people don't trust you. They don't want to connect. There's no connection, right? It's not the same.
Yeah.
So those are huge.
They are huge. And people change over time. You know, people change, people mature. I had a friend, one of my go-to women, big conversation. And she grabbed me by the shoulders and she looked me in the eye and she said, whatever you decide is the rest of your life. And you need to take words like that to heart, right? How long do you want to waste time for?
Yeah.
If you're not happy or if things aren't working for you.
Yeah.
If you don't like your job, change it.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't like who you're with, figure it out.
Yeah.
Why? What are you looking for?
Yeah. What are you waiting for?
What are you waiting for?
Yeah. Time is not going to fix it.
No. You know, like I'm 53 and she's a little bit older than me. And it's just like, oof, I'm on the second half.
Yeah.
You know, so.
Well, that's pretty powerful. I think we can leave it at that. That's pretty awesome. Yeah. One of the reasons as I made my first list of people I wanted to interview, you were right on there.
Right on.
And because, I can't say, we've been at a few events and stuff outside of the clinic. You've come into the clinic, but I've always admired you because you're very real and very honest and true to yourself. And
I hope so.
I know you are. And that to me it's a very attractive quality, but it's also something that draws people to you. But I also wanted to, because again, you're just seeing your boys and the way you are with your boys, I wanted to hear those stories of your parenting too, because I do think those things are very real and beneficial to any parent.
Mm-hmm.
And so I thank you.
Thank you
for being you and for sharing all of this with us.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you for listening, everyone. I will put, Jenni's information in there if you want to, really follow someone who's pretty hilarious on Instagram and got some neat stuff. And
like chickens.
Yeah. And maybe, learn more about some of these groups she's a part of and get out and meet some new women and, get connected. And, I know one of them is the Wednesday morning meditation group. You do that one sometimes. And it's a good little group.
Yeah. There's some amazing people here in town.
Yeah. That's great.
Good friends to be made.
Yeah. The more we connect, the more we share, the more honest we'll be, the healthier and happier we all will be.
Absolutely.
Great.
I agree.
Thanks for listening, everyone. Take care of yourself. Bye. All right. What a wonderful discussion with Jenni. I have known her for probably, almost 10 years. Seeing her in around the community. She is a patient, brings her boys in. But I have always admired her from a distance. Knowing what she's kind of done in the community and her sense of humor and the way she parents her kids and just that zest for life that she has. And that's why I wanted to have her on the show. And because I think not only is she a particularly interesting person and all, but she's a great example of being authentic and honest and vulnerable and real. And I think that's why she's so beloved and why, so many people want her within their circle and spend time around her. That's a quality that I think endears a lot of people to you when you can demonstrate those qualities. And it helps you develop strong friendships when you can be honest with each other and you can be real and, talk about the things that you are struggling with and the things that bring you joy and being real and vulnerable. And, as we can practice these things more and be open about them and share them with our friends, then there's less of that stigma about struggling and not, reaching that pinnacle of what we're supposed to be as, humans, that Instagram ideal. And I love the things that she shared about parenting. Sounds like we parent very similarly. And again, parenting styles need to fit the children and the individual. And you need to find that mix in between so that you can reach your children. I had a patient in recently, and she's struggling with her 10-year-old daughter who's going on 18. And, we're talking about it. And I said, it's important to remember that you parent that child differently than your other kids. Like her other kids, she never had any issues with, but here's this daughter who's very independent and ready to grow up and, wants to do things her way. And there's nothing wrong with that. That just shows that she's confident and she is ready to take on the world and, trusts herself. Like these are good qualities. Now we have to work with that rather than fighting against it. And, if they're ready to do those things, you just got to show them some trust, help them understand, if you want to take on more responsibility, here's the consequences of that and what comes with it. So if you want to have, these more freedoms at this age, then here's some things you need to do in exchange. And you got to work that around with that kid individually to help them find their potential and find that mode of parenting that's going to work with them. And then just let kids know, in your family that, it's not that there's different rules. It's just we're ready for different things at different times and we're different people. And so, that's how things work. That's how the world works. There's overall like a set of rules for like law-abiding behavior, but then how we communicate and how we interact with each other and how we take on that responsibility, it is different from person to person. So there's nothing wrong with treating your children a little differently for what they're ready with. And as you find that sweet spot, it can make it a lot easier. You know, not that I'm an expert, but I do have 7 kids, so and I think we've done an okay job. And if you really want to learn a little bit more about how I parent, you can always follow my other podcast with my son, Max, called Really Dad. And to find the link for that, like you can search for it on where you listen to podcasts, or you can go to jaredmccallum.com to find the link to listen to it directly. But him and Max and I talk a lot about how to parent a teenager. And that podcast, just be warned, is even more laid back than this one. And there's lots of swearing. My son, his only thing that he could improve on a little bit is maybe a little less swearing. But if that's all I got to deal with, I'm happy with that. But yeah, Jenni, thank you so much for coming in and sharing who you are. You are incredibly unique and wonderful, and a treasure to our community. You know, every person I've had on this show, I enjoy them and, care for them even more after these discussions. And it's really taught me that that's how we build community. That's how we build relationships. We have to sit down and listen to people and share and be vulnerable and be open. And the more we can have these kind of discussions, the more we can, spend time with our community. And I know right now is a really hard time for that with COVID and all the restrictions and rules. But hopefully we can find that time, in, COVID sensitive parameters and online and other things like that. But that is our future. If we want to heal our communities and we want to heal this division that's been created, it's sitting down and talking and listening. And I think these, I was talking to a patient today about these divisions we have with, ideologies and how people choose one or two things to kind of grasp upon. And if anyone challenges the leader they like or the ideology that they hold, they take it as a personal attack. And I want to be able to express and share and help people understand that you are not your beliefs. You are totally separate from your beliefs. Your beliefs are something that, add to your life and kind of, you choose these beliefs to guide you, but they aren't you. So if someone challenges your ideas and beliefs, they're not challenging you individually. We can still love and care for each other, even though we may have different beliefs, different religions, different ideas. That's totally fine. Like, I have my opinions on a lot of things. I'm sure from listening, that. But I care about people. And one thing I know is in person, people are always better than they are online or, better than their beliefs. People are better than their beliefs. I'll tell you that much. They're better than who they vote for. They're better than, and when we distill everything down to these, simple things like what party you support, what leader you support, what religion you are, whatever, that's not you. And it, makes you very defensive. And when we try to spend our time online trying to change people's beliefs through whether it's facts or opinions or ideas, all that does is entrench people deeper into their ideology and belief system. Because again, they feel you're attacking them. And no one wants to be attacked. No one wants to be hurt. And you trying to sway them is like this affront to who they are, their core. And as wrong as that is still how they feel. And the only way to convince people otherwise, and the only thing that really matters is, because those beliefs don't affect anything, is how they behave and act. So when you show love and kindness and non-judgment and community with people, that's how we all change and kind of meet in the middle. And we can heal. Now, our ideas on how to run an economy or, deal with COVID or, who a leader should be, all of those things don't really matter in the big picture. Because if we can meet in the middle and be kind and show each other that really we all agree that, we want to be safe and loved and accepted, and that we want clean water and air and, a future for our kids. We all agree on that. And if we can focus on those things, then we can focus on the ideas and the foundations that can support those concepts, rather than saying, oh, well, if you believe this, or if you support this person, you're a bad person. Because then they will dig in further and support that individual or those ideas more because they feel that's who they are. So let's, maybe it might be time to stop trying to convince people with memes and videos and statements and your own set of facts. Let's just focus on connection and love and community and see where that takes us for a while. Because we've been dealing with this social media thing, trying to convince everyone of one way or other for at least 5 or really intensely for 6 years, right? If not for 10 or 15. But these last 6 years have been really hard on everyone. And it hasn't helped us. It's only driven us further apart. So if you want to make life a little easier on you and less stress and tension and all of that, have a little social media fast and stop trying to convince everyone and just share the things that build community and bring you together. Because no one cares. I'll tell you, when you only care when someone posts something that you agree with. And then you like it. No, it's all good. But if someone posts something you don't, then there's this division, this belief created chasm that shows up. That's not real because it's just ideas. So there's my rant this week, coming out of our discussion. And I hope we can continue with this and have some great discussions. I've got some really interesting people lined up over the next few weeks, and I'm excited to share them with you. People that are just really interesting and lots of fun and a part of your community. And again, if you know anyone that you feel I should interview, that you feel could benefit our podcast, send me a message, whether Instagram, Facebook, email on our website or something. You can email me directly through jaredmccallum.com and we can talk about it. And again, if we could ever get this virus under control, I really look forward to teaching my course, The 5 Elements to Letting Go, live again. It's been a year now because of COVID that I haven't taught it. And we've got some space now to do that. So if everything clears up, we will do a live in-person course sometime this spring, hopefully. But if you don't want to wait till then, you want to learn more about your emotions and how you can let go, you can go to jaredmccallum.com, or you can click on some of the links below and go directly to the course. And I'm going to put up a coupon just for our listeners, okay? And I'll give everyone who listens to our course $100 off my course, The 5 Elements Letting Go. And the coupon code is going to be podcast. All right. So I'm not going to put that up anywhere else. I'm not going to advertise it. It'll be just for our listeners. And we'll do it for the first 50 people that order the course. And when that's done, then we'll wait a while and maybe introduce it again in a few months or so. But I'm really grateful for everyone that listens. It's a lot of fun. Thank you for making my hobby a lot of fun. And if you have any questions about the course, all the information is on the website, jaredmccallum.thinkific.com. And, there's a few nice freebies built into the course for you to learn. And everyone who gets the course gets a free half-hour coaching session with me, kind of going through the course and talking about emotions. So, everyone have a great week. And thanks for listening. Thanks for being a big part of your community and showing a little more love and patience and communication. Anyway, enjoy this lovely weather. Take care, everyone. Bye.